He had his gun, so he just swung it open.
I start to notice that, the atmosphere feels a little bit weird.
First thing he seen was this 6.5 foot tall, broad shoulder, dark hair. That freaked him out.
We hadn't talked to her about like life and death and what any of that means. She's 3 years old,
So we turned around. Suddenly there's a whole tree falling across the road.
And she was describing to us that, there was a deceased person that she could see visually.
You're listening to Cryptid Clues, where we tackle the ever-expanding history and mystery of monsters and supernatural madness every Monday. You can find us at CryptidClues.ca for more information, or even check out exclusive content and support us at patreon.com/CryptidClues. In a forest of fir trees, both frosty and bright, lived a creature named Hugh, with fur snowy white. A Bigfoot of legend, though gentle and shy, he lived all alone, where the tall trees grew high. Near his home stood a tree with a magical glow. Its branches held fireflies and ice-crusted snow. It whispered of stories, of kindness and cheer, of a season called Christmas that came every year. Though Hugh Foot, I might add, was curious, he didn't quite know what this Christmas could mean, as no humans would show. They feared his big feet and his monstrous disguise, not seeing the kindness behind his wide eyes. The tree spoke of feasts and of friends gathered tight, of giving and joy that lit up the night. One Christmas Eve, Hugh sat by the tree, its glow soft and gentle, as quiet as could be. I wish I could learn what this Christmas is like, he murmured out loud, then looked to the right. For there was his cave, an unwelcoming sight, filled with trinkets and baubles, all bathed in the light. A handle, a frame, and glass cracked askew, lost relics of people who'd fled when they knew. When they'd stumbled on Hugh, they'd run off in fright, leaving behind their belongings in flight. From these scattered fragments, Hugh formed a plan. He'd make a small gift with his own 2 hands. He polished some ice from the cave's frosty shelves and crafted a mirror that sparkled itself. With a broken handle and frame tied up tight, the mirror he placed and held up to the light. If Christmas means giving, Hugh Foot softly mused, perhaps this small gift will help cure my blues. But before he could leave to the towns far away, a thunder of hooves made him freeze and stay. A herd of elk and deer, their eyes wild with fear, rushed past him in haste, away from here. Hugh Foot watched them flee and then glanced toward the trees, where a chill seemed to ride on the night's icy breeze. He recalled old tales from the whispers of men, of a beast in the loch, feared again and again, a creature called Nessie, both mighty and grim, who ruled the dark waters with shadow and whim. Though feared by the world, Hugh pondered her plight. Was Nessie so bad, or misunderstood outright? With his gift in his hands, Hugh Foot did not delay. Through snow-covered hills, he made careful his way. The loch lay before him, mysterious and vast. Its waters were quiet, its surface like glass. But soon from the depths rose a shadow immense, and Nessie appeared with a glare most intense. Her long neck arched high, her scales glimmered green, her voice like a rumble. What does this mean? Who dares come so close to my watery home? Speak quickly, or else leave me alone. Hugh Foot raised his hands and said, Please, don't fight. I thought perhaps you were lonely tonight. Lonely? Nessie snarled, her voice cold and grim. What do you know of a life lived so dim? Cursed with this form, I inspire only fear. Surely I'm hideous, too foul to revere. On this night of joy, of gatherings near, Christmas approaches, but at it I'll sneer. Hughfoot stepped closer, his voice calm and low. I live all alone, where the frost flowers grow. I know how it feels, with no friends around, when the forest is quiet, without the faintest of sound. Nessie froze in surprise, her rage turning to doubt. She watched as Hughfoot took his gift and held it out. This mirror is special, he said with a grin. It must be meant for you, to see what's within. Nessie blinked as she took the small, shimmering prize. Her reflection stared back, with tears in her eyes. You see me, she whispered, her voice soft and low. No one's seen me before, only fear did they show. Hughfoot smiled warmly, his heart filled with cheer. That's what Christmas is, Nessie. Kindness sincere. Perhaps all you need is someone near, willing to lend you a listening ear. Nessie's heart softened, her anger erased, and a smile spread slowly across her great face. From that night on, the two were a pair, sharing stories and laughter in the cool evening air. Each year on the night, when the fireflies danced, they'd sit by the loch as its beauty entranced. For Hughfoot and Nessie, the lesson was clear. Christmas was kindness that lasts all of the year. So if you find yourself near Loch Ness late at night, and you hear gentle splashes or see soft glowing light, remember the tale of Hughfoot and the Beast, of a Christmas transformed by a gift that brought peace.
Merry Christmas, everyone. Thank you, Reuben, for that festive poem. I hope you all are enjoying good food, friends, and family today, wherever you are around the world. Now, because it's Christmas, we thought we would sneak in our classic annual Christmas Clues bonus episode for you guys, along with a couple Sasquatch encounters to top it all off. Before we get into that, in recent news, you can find a couple more episodes that are mainly focused on the UAP UFO congressional hearing and some more discussions following that. Next week, which is also our last episode of 2024, we're going to be closing off our three-parter coverage of all of these unknown flying object sightings, the chatter and conversations and such. Then our first episode of 2025 will be diving back into a few more Sasquatch encounters. So stay tuned for all of that. Lots of good stuff coming. But without further ado, let's get into today's encounters. And I quote, "Strange memory. I just had a short conversation about this encounter and wanted to seek outside input to put it to rest. I grew up in northern Arizona, in a pretty woodsy area, and spent hours each day playing outside alone. I would have been around 10 years old when this happened. One day I was walking home and saw a large creature standing next to a house up the road. It was far enough away that I couldn't see details, but it was broad daylight, and the creature was stark black, which immediately caught my attention. At first, I thought it might be a man on a ladder. However, as I stared longer, I realized I was looking at it head on, and it was looking at me. The creature was completely black and standing totally still. Admittedly, my first thought was Bigfoot. I panicked and ran home as fast as I could. Once I was inside and had calmed down, I remembered there had been recent reports of a bear in the neighborhood. I simply told myself I'd seen the bear and told my mother so she could alert the neighbors. For the next week, I stayed inside to play. What stuck with me, though, was that the creature didn't seem to have the pointed snout of a bear. I told myself I was just letting my imagination get the better of me and eventually let it go. Fast forward to a few months ago, I visited my hometown for the first time in over a decade and decided to show my boyfriend my childhood home. As we walked through the neighborhood, I reminisced about my childhood and shared stories of my wildlife encounters. He's a city boy, so these kinds of stories always fascinate him. When we walked past the house where I'd seen the creature, I pointed it out and told him that's where I'd seen the standing bear as a kid. I added that it had been so large its head was higher than the eave of the house, which we could see was about 9 feet off of the ground. My boyfriend asked, how big do bears get again? I pulled out my phone, Googled the average height of black bears, and shared what I found. He then said, "That's pretty big for a bear, don't you think?" That comment made me realize something. For the creature's head to be that much higher than that eve, it would have had to have been closer to 10 feet tall. I've had a casual interest in Bigfoot for a while, but I don't want to make any biased assumptions about what I saw. End quote. It's always interesting to think in retrospect that something you may have seen was simply misidentified. And bears are usually the common factor here until they stand on their two back hind legs and they either walk or run off. And it's in a way or a manner that it's like, okay, no bear should be able to do that. And when you see these things as a kid, I think it's tricky because you will have parents that will help you forget and coax that out of you. Or you will just reaffirm on it, know what you saw, and your parents might still try to deny, or your parents might be forthcoming with like, okay, yep, I've seen something too. It really depends on your I guess your upbringing in this case and how your parents respond to your sighting. I think a lot of folks probably just want to bury it because it could be deemed as unacceptable in society, or others could just be afraid because it's not supposed to be a real living thing that exists. It's really different with every family group out there. I mean, humans, not Bigfoot in terms of family groups, but I digress. Our next encounter takes us to North Georgia, and I quote, "Never gave much thought about Bigfoot until this strange occurrence I had. I have hesitated to even tell this. Back in 2009, I had been living in North Georgia and spent a lot of time riding my motorcycle as there is an abundance of great riding roads all throughout the foothills of North Georgia. A coworker of mine was an avid motorcycle enthusiast as well and invited me to take a Saturday trip up through the Chattahoochee-Oconee National Forest. I had never been up through that area for a ride, but I was looking forward to it. So Saturday rolls around and we take off for the day. We're taking a very leisurely pace as there are quite a few people out on the roads and there are a lot of twists and turns through the area. We head into an area known as the Pocket. This is a very nice camping and RV area that is situated within the ridges and valleys of the North Georgia mountain area. There was a lot of activity out in the area that day, with campers and people enjoying themselves along the creek that runs the length of the camping area. As always, when riding, my eyes are darting left and right in anticipation of any danger, people, other vehicles, etc. As we were moving up a long incline, my riding partner was about 4 or 5 bike lengths ahead of me. I happened to glance over towards a wooded hill on the left side of the road, and something caught my eye. It was about 100 yards off from the road and walking up the side of the hill. My first thought was that it was a bear, but when I glanced back, I realized that it was walking upright on 2 legs and was moving quite fast up the hill. I slowed down and checked my surroundings so that I could direct my attention back to what had my attention. As I looked back, I saw that as it topped the hill, and it was in fact walking on 2 legs, and as it moved out of my line of sight, its left arm pushed what I thought were some low-hanging branches, as if it was just pushing them out of the way, and then I lost sight of it. This all took place in a matter of a few seconds. I was actively trying to process what I had just witnessed, and still keep my attention on controlling the motorcycle. As we approached the top of the incline, the road had a gradual turn to the left, and to the right was a pull-off area, sort of overlook or turnaround spot. As we approached it, my riding partner hand signaled that he was slowing down, and he pulled into the area, and I followed him. I pulled up directly behind him, and by this time, he was off his motorcycle and walking back to me and says, "Did you see that?" No, I do not remember exactly how our conversation went, but there was a lot of back and forth about what we each saw. Did you see what I saw? Did you see it walking on 2 legs? Did you see how big it was? And did you see how quickly it was moving up that steep hill? We both came to the conclusion that we each witnessed a bipedal creature walking up the hill. He did offer that he saw it hop over a downed tree trunk or log as it was walking up the side of the hill, but I did not witness that. That may have been when I redirected my attention to where I was going, but we turned around and drove back down the road to the area where we saw it, and as we were standing there staring up at the hill, a couple of guys who were camping across the road next to the creek came walking over to us and asked what we were looking for. Before we could even formulate an answer, one of the guys said, "Yeah, we've seen it a couple times too." Now, they claimed that they had seen it at dusk at the top of the hill looking towards where they were camping as if it was watching them. They said that they'd even heard howls at night. And they said that they had camped there a lot as well, as many as, other people, and that they never had any trouble as it was always keeping its distance. I played this over and over in my mind for years, and I've tried everything to convince myself that what I saw was a bear, but the truth is, what I saw was not a bear. I know what I saw, and if it was a bear, it was quite agile and very capable of walking up on 2 legs up the side of a steep hill. End quote. So this is just kind of, in conclusion, following up with what we were just talking about before. You think it's a bear, and you're trying to process it as a bear, but it's logical to do that. It's difficult because you're witnessing something that shouldn't exist. This thing probably was just passing through. It seemed to be very interested in the campers, but I imagine it wasn't really staying there. There's definitely a curiosity factor when it comes to these creatures, and why they're so engaged and curious about what we're up to is beyond me. I guess it's up to interpretation. There's many different experiences, and some can be very, very negative. Some can be fairly positive when you're dealing with these things and their curiosity. But I guess it really depends on the time of day, and if you're dealing with a happy one or an angry one. I don't have an answer, though. But I digress. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Cryptid Clues, or should I say Christmas Clues. We will be back next week. More awesome topics to discuss, and I hope you all have a very, very happy Christmas. And I hope you all lead into a wonderful New Year's 2025 inbound. Until then, everyone, take care and stay safe.
Thank you.